Final Four weekend. Welcome to Wager Talk, everybody. We're talking South Carolina Gonzaga, just as everybody expected before the dance began that we'd be talking about the Gamecocks. He's Ralph Michaels. You can follow him at Cal Sports LV, of course, on the website WagerTalk.com. Same goes for Bryan WagerTalk, and B. Leonard Sports is where you can follow him on Twitter. Guys, an unlikely matchup, and it's kind of funny. I was talking to Matt Holt the other day from CGT, and we all know Matt well, and he said, boy, he goes, this is going to be great. We didn't get one single futures bet on South Carolina all year long, and if they win the title, we're really going to make out a real nice profit when it comes to our future bets. I did a show with Chuck Esposito the other day from Station Casinos. Chuck, how many future bets did you get before the tournament began? And he goes, let me count on one hand, 0. I mean, it's amazing to think that not one person made a future bet on the Gamecocks this entire season. Not even a fan of South Carolina who might have been at a book. But Ralph, as far as the game is concerned, we've got Gonzaga 6.5, total 138.5, couple of 7s out there. I'll let you take first take on this particular matchup.
Well, you know, South Carolina wasn't even sure they were going to be in it themselves come Selection Sunday. But, you know, defense gets you there. South Carolina has my number 3 defense, and the whole talk has been their swarming, shutdown defense. They allowed Marquette, who has my number 8 offense, 46%. Duke has my number 5 offense, 42%. Baylor, my number 25 offense, 30%. Florida, my number 31 offense, 42%. Incredible. You got to like a defensive dog, but here's the flip side. Gonzaga has actually been better on defense. They have my number 2 defense. Listen to these numbers. South Dakota State, 31%. A lot of teams might do that. Held Northwestern to 41%, West Virginia to 27%, and Arizona to 36%. Gonzaga's defense gets overlooked. The problem is they score more points because of their higher-paced offense where South Carolina slows the ball game down. My number 3 and number 2 defenses, I'm going to look for a low-scoring game in this, and I do like under that 138.
And as we speak, you can still get that 138.5. It really hasn't moved. Brian, you know, Ralph just hit on all those defensive numbers, and that's, you know, a lot of people are talking about that scatter, scramble defense. I mean, if you take a full game against Florida earlier in the season and the second half of the game they just played the other day, that's a combined 0 for 31 for the Florida Gators from area code 3. Had a great first half the other day against South Carolina. Could not shoot the rock from area code 3 against that defense in the second half. But this isn't just about defense. All of a sudden, you're talking about a team that made 40% of their shots basically all season, struggled to get over 40%, making half their shots every game of the dance.
Yeah, I was obviously I was impressed all along. I was really impressed when they beat Florida, because if you go back, those other teams had never played that before. Florida's faced it 3 times. The first time Florida got beat, second time Florida wins handily. I figured Florida, now they know how to play them, they come out and win. I had Florida in that game, unfortunately. But for them to come out and just show that defense again, and Florida looked terrible. Florida looked like Florida did to Virginia earlier in the tournament. And that tells me that this team's got something going on right now. They've got an NBA player making the shots for them. Probably could be the best player on the court.
Darius Thornwell.
Yep. And I don't think Gonzaga sees this type of defense for where they're at. They're more of a up and down conference. The teams out west are known for their offense. St. Mary's is another one of those teams that gets up and down the court. This is an interesting matchup. It gives them a week to prepare for it. But can they duplicate that? Everything I've heard from the coaches that have played South Carolina is you could prepare for it, but until you see it, it's not the same.
I think the closest thing I've seen to this kind of defense, as far as the intensity level lasting for as long as it does and being there almost every possession, goes back to Jerry Tarkanian's Amoeba defense, you know, with UNLV back in 1990. Same intensity from start to finish of another team's possession and flying from the ball handler one to another. Ralph, real quickly, I was going to ask you, does Gonzaga, I know the footwork of the bigs for Gonzaga isn't quite at the speed level of South Carolina's footwork from their bigs. Can they deny dribble penetration? You know, Darius Thornwell set such a tone as far as a physical style of play that teams have kind of wilted in the second half against this team. I think Gonzaga has the bigs. Do you foresee them being able to maybe slow down Thornwell a little bit as far as the physical style of play?
You know what I think? I think they have enough defense to slow Thornwell down, and the problem is going to be, does South Carolina have the secondary scoring? They haven't needed it because they've held opponents in the 50s and 60s. Sure. If Gonzaga can push this game into the 60s or 70s, South Carolina is going to need that extra score, and that's where they might run into trouble. You know, normally I look for the team that does well in cover. South Carolina's covered every game by double digits. They've been a dog. They're averaging 15 points per game cover. And Gonzaga struggled down the stretch. They didn't cover against Northwestern. That West Virginia game was tight and the Arizona game was tight. Normally, I look at a team that goes to the championship as a team that covers well, and that's what concerns me with Gonzaga. Now, the Zags are 7-1 as a single-digit favorite this year, so when they played those tough teams early, they've beaten them. The only game they didn't cover was an Iowa State game. They laid 4.5 early in the year in a neutral setting, and they did win. So they are 8-0 straight up in that situation. So, with that said, I still do think that they're going to be able to slow them down enough, and again, under is my call in this game.
Under for Ralph, you got to play in the game?
Slight lean to the dog.
Lean to the dog. Okay, so you're a little lean to taking the points with South Carolina. He's Ralph. Again, check him out at Cal Sports LV if you want to follow him on Twitter. Bryan at B Leonard Sports. I'm at Scott Wins. You can check all our work out at WagerTalk.com. More Final Four talk to come from some other guys, including Marco. Stick around for that. We are WagerTalk TV.